Well, let's get into it a little bit. You guys both very successful with what you do, and we're going to get into how you beat people. What drives both of you? I mean, what is your drive? I mean, obviously it's professional athletes and collegiate athletes, all the stuff you've had to do. Are there things that you learned that you're so glad you learned that are helping you in your professional career?
For me, it's been cumulative. I obviously starting out younger, I had an older brother that kind of pushed me, encouraged me to play sports. So, from the competitive side of it, I'm pretty competitive. I like to win, but I hate to lose more than I like to win. So that's number one. But then I'm a self-motivated person,
Right.
to some degree, I think I have a fear of failure because I always want to be successful and, I want to take on new things, take on new challenges. Obviously, it's an opportunity to learn. So, those are a few key things that that drive me, along with having people around you that believe in you. Then that kind of adds fuel to the fire because you want to be successful when you have supportive people that are behind you.
Like your man Jason Campbell. He's
Absolutely,
a good man.
that was my
good
roommate.
Man.
In
Yeah,
college.
that's how
Yeah.
I met you. Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. That perfect season. How about you, Rennie?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it starts with the foundation of my parents. Both of them are Liberian immigrants who came to this country in the 80s, and they had that, that mindset of just coming here, not really having much, but making the most out of what they have. And so knowing that my mom came here to Emory, got her master's without even knowing her way around, my dad became an entrepreneur and just grinded, and seeing the sacrifices that they made. I mean, that's something that's the biggest part of my life, and I had no excuses growing up. Growing up in Gwinnett, going to Brookwood High School, that's where it really started. I was very, very self-motivated, as Ronnie said as well. And then outside of that, my faith was a big part of what drove me, just knowing that God gave me these gifts, and I wasn't going to let it go to waste because I knew if I did that, he was going to I was either going to lose it or he was going to give it to somebody else. So those are kind of the things that drove me. And then also all the people that poured into me, support system, just as Ronnie said. I had teachers, coaches, janitors, lunch ladies, you can go down the list. Right. I'm a product of the environment, man. So when I think about all the people that poured into me, I have no reason but to continue to strive and grow. And no matter what level I reach, I'm always thinking about how can I continue to grow and do better and do more.
Well, it's funny, too, and I didn't mean to kid you, but y'all are both Cartersville originally and Snellville, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
not, in the Metro Atlanta world, that's all, with one drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, Ron, I'm just curious. You both mentioned self-motivated.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a key driver for both of you. So elaborate on that for the audience a little bit.
Right. So when I think of self-motivation, I think about the fact that when it came to the game, I didn't need a coach to yell at me. I didn't need my parents. Most of the time they're working nonstop, till 6 to 8 o'clock at night. And so I knew that if I was to be successful, it was going to come down to my mindset and my discipline and my ability to get out even when I don't feel like it. And so that's something that's been a recurring theme now that I'm in entrepreneurship. So self-motivation, I believe, just understanding that it starts with you and nobody else, and not having to have those external factors that motivate you.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. And for me, it was, kind of like Rennie said, the same thing, the self-motivation. In my mind, I've always had the mentality of you have to be great at the things that don't take talent. Obviously, that's being on time, knowing what to do when you get there, and then you could always learn how to do it, especially like in the sports world. You're always going to have a coach. You're always going to have someone to tell you how to do it.
Right.
But then, there has to be a why within inside of you, and then once you know your why, and then the rest of it takes care of itself. When you're self-motivated, you figure it out. You know what you're doing, you know how to do it, but at the same time, all the other things that come along with being a professional or, an athlete, you have to be willing to accept, challenges and face those challenges straight forward.
I think that's key, Ryan, because a lot of people get into business and start their own business and think it's just going to happen. And they don't have to have the mindset. They don't have to have the discipline.
Yeah.
But it really starts with choice.
Yeah, it really does.
And you two guys are successful because you've chosen to do that.
Well, that's my first book, Everyone's in Sales. You're selling yourself
Right.
and building a relationship if you've done the right way, right? Yeah. And one thing you guys both said is I said I have 3 daughters. They've all played the traveling cross-country soccer. I watch so many parents giving what we call extrinsic motivation, money if you score a goal.
Right.
That's, to me, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
My kids do their own laundry, pack their own stuff. They know if they're not there 45 minutes ahead, and I'm always like, we got a little more time. Like, no, coach is going to be mad. Those skills are way more important than what you're going to learn as a soccer player, right?
Totally
because
agree.
you can take those the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
So when my oldest just went to Georgia Tech, she doesn't play soccer anymore, but she knew how to manage her time.
Right.
I'm sure you guys dealt with that,
key,
right?
Yeah.
Because she knew, and our friends were like, oh, my God, we don't have enough time. She's like, she felt freed up.
Right.
And so that's kind of, I was curious if you guys agree with that, like from the athletic side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One, I think you always have to be great at time management, because that's key, to being successful in life, is managing your time, which is one of probably the biggest challenges because there's so many moving parts, and there's scheduling conflicts that arise, whether it's friends, family, whatever it may be, things pop up. You have to be here at a certain time. So if you can, get that under control and be able to schedule your time and manage your time, correctly or efficiently, then it makes for a lot of other things. And one, it reduces a lot of stress because you're not feeling pressured. But then outside of that, I think just being good at things, I think, like you said, like I tell my son all the time and my kids, I'm like, you shouldn't be or shouldn't want to be rewarded for doing the right thing. Like, the expectations are the expectations, and the standard is the standard. Like, once we set the standard, you want to be great, then you need to follow up and you need to take all the steps to necessarily be great at what you want to do and achieve what you want to. But I can't tell you what you want to do, or I can't make you have something that you don't have. Like, that has to come from within. And once you set the standard, this is the bar. It doesn't waver, and you always have to do everything accordingly based on that.
Right. How do you apply that in your business life?
The same thing applies, and there was a lot of things that I learned through sport that applied to business world. Like I said, number one, the standard is the standard. And then two, being great at the things that don't take talent. I can always be on time to work. I can always do the things necessarily, treat people the right way, all these things. And then outside of that, from work ethic standpoint, I just feel like you're not going to outwork me. There's no excuse for that.
I think I've heard Rennie say that same thing.
A little challenge
that's
there.
that's awesome.
Yes.
And I think you approach things that way. One, I think it's from a competitive nature. A lot of athletes, you just don't want to lose. But then also knowing, to be successful, it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of challenges, but even throughout sport, you learn a lot about yourself that you may not have known, because there are limits and thresholds that you have to go through, whether it's in camp or training camps or all these things in the summer. And, you have to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do to be successful.
You got to be willing to grind. I was telling someone the other day when we were prepping, I talked to Jane when I was in Las Vegas. No one got to see creating PowerPoints. No one got to see me do 3 walkthroughs, doing this. They get to see the pictures and the videos,
finished product,
the reps, right? And when I was younger, even 10 years ago speaking, I got by a little bit on talent and didn't put in quite as many reps, but the reps, which you guys did for a living, make the difference. I mean, that is what makes you just completely comfortable. And so there's no shortcut in grinding it, right?
No, without a doubt. And that's one of the things that I think about playing my position at linebacker, because there was so much time, and Ronnie can attest to this as well, but we spent so much time in the film room, breaking down plays, understanding tendencies, understanding statistics. Like, I thought I was bad at math until I realized, like, we spent so many hours studying, all these things. And so I'm a master at understanding, tendencies, being able to anticipate the next move of my competitors. Like, all those things translate into business. If you're not able to measure, just the reps and the success and why things are working the right way, especially in sales, understanding your process, you're going to eventually fail, or you're going to be moving in the right direction, but you're not going to understand why. So all those things, translate and help you just to improve the performance.
So when you're working with your clients or working with groups now on their personal development, how do you help them get that? It's not like one of my former lives, I did some coaching at 2 small colleges, certainly not at the level you guys play, but understand the dynamics of athletics and discipline.
Right.
You can't challenge them by running laps or whatever if they don't get it. So how do you transfer that as you're working with your clients in personal development?
So it always starts, I believe, with awareness. So starting with where you're at right now, looking yourself in the mirror, doing a self-evaluation. Most people don't even understand, what their things like what their values are and what their vision is. Like, starting from the base of just where am I at now, what's working, what's not working, asking powerful questions to get them to really evaluate and break their own selves down. And then even from the standpoint of, what am I doing right? Why am I winning? Why am I closing sales?
And sometimes people don't even know that.
They don't understand that. It's kind of that hit or miss, kind of thing. You just, because you get into the daily grind of just going through the motions and trying to survive. And so breaking them out of that and getting them to really evaluate themselves is where it starts for me. And then from there, just giving them principles and key metrics to focus on, getting them to break down their days, scheduling their days, understanding where am I spending the majority of my time, where my priorities at, where do I eventually want to be, setting those benchmarks. I do a lot.
Well, that's huge. That whole self-awareness key, right? You know the value of that.
Well, I told my middle daughter when I was telling you about this, well, we won't say it on the air, but she's got a big opportunity in front of her where I'm going Friday to make sure everything's in line before a Saturday potential good
Yeah.
thing could happen. I'll just talk in code. Right. But I told her about 6 months ago, she was going through a tough time in her life. And I said, look, here's the standards of our family.
Right.
You know how hard I work. You know how hard your mom works. We're not going to, there's no handouts. You know, and so she went out. She got a job right at Chick-fil-A. She's grinding. She worked herself for 4 months about as hard as she could because she wanted to,
Right.
not because somebody was telling her to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I started a lot of time with clients, you know, I'm sure you deal with this in financial. What do you want to do? And what my point is, I have on my mouse pad, I want to live by the water, not on a beach house, but near the water one day when I get my doctorate.
Right.
And every time I'm grinding late at night, as I was telling you guys, and I'm going, man, why am I doing this? It's my mental picture in 10, 12 years.
Right.
I'm going to be able to do what I want to do for the
Right.
long haul.
Right.
Because otherwise, if they don't have that clear vision, it gets fuzzy. And that's what Jane and I always talk about going, it's just like doing reps. Man, I'm burning out.
Right.
But I told her, you've got to have a clear vision, what it looks like when you walk across that graduation stage, why you're doing all this, why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, do you have that, Ronnie, with some of your clients, or when you're starting to talk to people, sometimes they don't even know what they want to achieve financially?
Yeah, sure. And I think that's the central factor that a lot of people, you know, possess, is in terms of the self-reflection, or even knowing what it is you want to accomplish. Like, what are your goals? Like, have you self-reflected?
Right.
Do you really know what you want to achieve? Like, and then, you know, trying to accumulate a plan, or, you know, culminate a plan to, okay, how do we get to that point? But, you know, first and foremost, it starts with having an understanding of what you want to accomplish and having your goal in mind, and then realizing what it takes. Okay, now we have a plan in place. Now what actions do we need to take? And every action that we do make has to align with what our goals are, you know. And I think a lot of times, you know, you'll see people, after a situation's occurred, they'll wonder, how did I get here? But, you know, once you reflect and you're honest with yourself about the actions and, you know, decisions that you made, then it makes perfect sense, you know. And I think that's the key, like even with military and sports alike, you know, not to compare the two, but, you know, I think just going into it, having a plan, and then you go to the game or you go to whatever it is, the challenge, and then you debrief on how everything went,
Sure.
you know, and having an understanding, but also, you know, leaving your pride at the door and being like, you know what, this is an opportunity to either, you know, there's a lesson or a blessing in pretty much every challenge that we have. And I think as long as we're mentally open to trying to learn what that lesson or blessing is, then there's something that we can learn from it, and now we can grow. And I think that's the ultimate thing, you know, is all of us growing.
Yeah. Well, I had my mother-in-law told me a few years ago speaking, and she was a speaker, right? And she's retired now, and she said something like, "You nailing it, except you got too many and you sometimes lose your train of thought." You know, you know what I'm talking about. So what did I do? I went back and go, all right, there's some truth in that.
Right.
Rep it. You know, keep practicing it to think, pause, and don't just say something to fill the airspace. So it's a continual growth. I tell people there is no real failure if you learn from it.
Right.
But too many people fail and they just don't have a clue of how to apply it to get better. There's nothing wrong with failing.
Right.
If you're gonna fail to succeed, right?
Well,
Right.
That's how we learn.
Yeah.
That's how we
That's
learn.
what you coach people for a living.
Well, sure. You know, I'm just curious, Ronnie. So talk about clear vision, Ryan. As a running back, you were looking for the clear vision to see your path to avoid the linebackers, you know, like Rennie. So I'm just curious how you translate or transfer those experience that you've learned into the business, the financial business that you're involved in now.
You know, I think for me, it's understanding that success is when preparation meets opportunity. And, you know, I think
Tweetable moment.
Yeah.
like the
Tweetable
preparation
moment.
is the key. Like, I got to watch film on Rennie all week. It's not just the Saturday thing. Like, I got to see his tendencies. I got to understand what he's doing, what his approach is, you know, how he likes to attack, and then try to use that to my advantage or try to make it his disadvantage. So understanding that it's not just today. It's it's an extended effort that's been put into it. There's a lot of training. Obviously, I still have to work out. I got to be accountable for, you know, my abilities. But then at the same time, I have to have an understanding of what it is that he's going to be able to do. And once I understand, you know, what my strengths and weaknesses are, and now I can analyze him and understand how I can use that to the best of my ability, now there's opportunity to be successful. But if I don't do that, I don't put anything in from Monday through Friday, then Saturday is not going to be a success because I haven't put the necessary time and work in to be successful.
Yeah.
But I want to throw it back to you. That's great. But but wouldn't you agree that this is my second? But would you buy from you? Your brand makes a difference. And it ended with saying, ultimately, your competition is yourself.
Yeah, that's
because
it.
I mean, in other words, you can. But if you haven't done the max, you can. But if somebody comes in, they're just faster, bigger, stronger. Someone wants to copy every presentation I do. I can't focus on that, right?
Yeah.
I've got to focus on what I can do. My God-given abilities, the best I can do them. Someone may be, I just can't compete with somebody. But you can always be true to yourself.
Oh yeah,
you
that's
agree
it.
with that?
Yeah, I mean that was a big part of, my rise was understanding the skills, gifts, and talents that I possessed that separated me, because I was a guy who was labeled as undersized. So I was not supposed to play at Georgia, wasn't supposed to play in the NFL, but I understood that I had those intangibles that Ronnie talked about. Also, the preparation was huge, the anticipation. So I tried to maximize every single asset that I could, whether it was technique, my stature in terms of having leverage. I mean, every single thing, and that I believe applies to businesses, especially if you're a small business. Understanding how you can compete with the bigger corporates. How do you separate yourself? And that's why I love talking about personal branding, because I believe that's one of the strongest ways that you can separate yourself. But for me, as opposed to Ronnie, he already went in knowing kind of what the play was. Mine was a lot about
reacting to
being proactive.
You're being like the other side of the chessboard.
Yeah, so it's like the other side, and so I'm having to anticipate. I'm having to look at, okay, how is this lineman leaning? What way is he looking at before the play starts? So it gave me every little key that I could have to give me like that understanding of what they were doing before it actually happened. It just helped me play that much.
But that's
faster.
the same side in sales when you're building a relationship. Going, all right, why are they not responding, or why are they?
Exactly.
What's the
awareness?
So I'll tell you what I call brand, guys. I call brand the barometer reading, like your baseline measurement of your reputation, your attributes, things, your name, and your distinctiveness, right?
Yeah,
so I talk about this and say, okay, Rennie's got a brand, and people go, well, I don't really have a brand. Well, then your brand is actually going to be defined for you by somebody else.
Exactly, yeah.
And I keep saying your brand is not what you say it is; it's what they say it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can say, man, I am the most organized guy, and everybody in the room would start laughing because I've got 3 or 4 people waiting outside. But your brand, as I was telling Ronnie before we went on air, my friend was just like, if I give your eulogy, I'm just going to do this. And what I mean by that is just, down to earth. It is who it is, but that might not be someone else's brand. But you got to really embrace it, be it, live it, love it.
That's
right?
it.
Right.
Well, and to that point, we've talked a lot about your lessons learned in your athletic part of your life.
Right.
And obviously, we've heard work ethic, we've heard discipline, we've heard choice, self-awareness. How do you want people to understand who you are today?
For me,
That's
it's I want people to understand that I am that I am. I mean, I think there are some things that people like about me. There are things that I need to work on, but importantly, I accept that. But even beyond that, just the way that I treat people, and empathetic, sympathetic as well, and just realizing that just by nature, I just want to do a good job genuinely. I like meeting people, but just hardworking. Like, I want people to understand that Ronnie actually got everything out of the gifts that he was blessed with. And it was weird because a week or two ago I was at a men's conference, and one of the speakers talked about potential. And I think once you maximize your potential as an individual, a lot of times we look at other people and say, I want to be that.
That's true.
But we may not be blessed with the same attributes. So, understanding, realizing who you are and maximizing your potential, because as much as I want to, I can want to go out and play the piano, but if I don't,
Rennie
I'm just
can't.
not, and so that's just not what I'm blessed with. As long as I maximize
I can't
my
even hold a
potential,
note, so you're good with me.
right? And I think just the way that he put it, he drew 2 lines, and obviously one of the lines had a higher potential rating, and that's like encountering people that may be a little bit more talented than you are, but then drawing your line and you maximizing your potential every time. So if I can maximize my potential every time, and then there are times where they don't maximize their potential, then there may be times that I'll be successful because I know the standard that I've set, and if I'm always willing to maximize my potential, then there's opportunity there.
That's great. How about you, Rennie?
So for me, I mean, I definitely want to, achieve my highest potential, which I feel like there is no highest potential. It's always going to be something more. So I'm at the point in my life now where I'm about, how can I be a servant? I feel like that's what takes it to the next level. You reach what you feel like is your highest potential. You're continuing to grow, but you're also looking back and seeing, who else can I pour into? Is it an athlete who is undersized like I once was that I can pour into? Is it a college student who's transitioning into the real world? So I'm thinking about, how can I, not only leverage the skills and gifts and talents the Lord has blessed me with, but how can I take those same gifts and be an influence and impact somebody else's life, whether it's an athlete or a business professional. And that's kind of how I want to be remembered, as a person of value, a connector, somebody who really just tried to do more and speak up, and be a leader.
Well, the thing I love about both you guys is, we all follow each other on Twitter and Instagram and all that, but y'all's messages encourage me. I mean, there's times people get to see all this stuff, but I'm going, man, I'm overwhelmed, whatever. And you bring it back to and we're all, faith-based, basic principles of like pick yourself up, be who you are. And there's been times I just want to tell you while we're on the air that I've seen something and it just goes, you know what? Why, I got so much to be thankful for. Why am I getting, why am I focused on that? And so I'm out coaching other people to do it, but we all fall in that, don't we? I mean, no matter how positive you want to be, you have one of those days.
Oh, yeah.
And
not you, Ryan. You I mean, you are
always on.
Well,
always on.
I was told the other day that there's two people told me they have a Ryan email folder for encouraging emails, and then my wife said, why don't I get that, Ryan, sometimes? I'm like, well, you get a lot more of the, I apologize, I'm playing, but I try to encourage.
Yeah,
I think we can get more out of encouraging people. I had a client I was working with a few years ago, and they said, you have to be so encouraging in consulting. And I'm like, I'm going to get the same results. I don't have to be a jerk to get you to raise your game up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, and you can slam your fist down to it, but I think if you get people to really want to run through the wall for you, that's how I prefer to do it. Doesn't mean it's right. That's just how I prefer to do it.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
So, Rennie, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about starting their own business or becoming, as we like to say, an entrepreneur?
Oh, man, you better get ready to have some faith.
I can second that.
Yeah, like, boy, I don't think people realize, especially this day and age with social media and how you have the creating of perceptions that make things look a certain way, but boy, entrepreneurship is lonely.
It's a roller coaster.
It's not only is a roller coaster, but you have to spend so much time by yourself in your own head.
Yep.
If you're not able to have that clear vision and understanding that the fact that if I keep getting the reps in, if I keep putting the work in, making the conversations, sending the emails, doing the tweets, that eventually something is going to work. If you don't have that true belief, you're not going to make it, you're not going to survive. And that's what keeps a lot of people who have that book idea, that business idea, away from entrepreneurship, because they want the consistency of a paycheck, or they want the guarantee and the just that what comes with that lack of faith, which is that assurance that something is going to be there. Like, you have to be willing to thrive and know that, like I said, it's going to be a payoff. It may not be a month, it may not be 2 months, but it's going to come. So that's the advice I would give. First, you have to establish that faith, and then understand that it's a progression, it's a process.
Yes.
So I didn't just jump into entrepreneurship, after football. It started back in 2011 when I got cut from my first team, and that's when I started by building a website. I started meeting with business professionals. I started going to workshops, started reading books, and entrepreneurship kind of caught me. So I'd say about fifth, sixth year in the NFL, when I was waiting for a team, I started getting more speaking engagements. I started getting more opportunities to where it didn't really make sense for me to go back into football. So I would say understand that entrepreneurship is a calling as well. Like, you can't just all of a sudden cut your job and just think, I'm gonna just start this. No, you have to build it. You have to start with a strong foundation and all those things. So I go on and on, but yeah.
That's good, and I heard a lot of points about a transition plan in there, which I won't recap.
Planning.
But succession planning. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ronnie, I would think too, with what you do, your mind is always building relationships, whatever you're doing, right? Because you're your own entrepreneur. I mean, of your world, of what you're doing, and I relate to what you both are saying, because the problem with an entrepreneur is you just can't turn it off and say, well, I'm going to go take a 2-week vacation. I hope things. You always got to be looking for opportunities, but it's really relationships and trust. I mean, so I mean, how do you you have anything to piggyback on what Rennie was saying there?
Yeah, and I totally agree with what Rennie said, but also I think just to add a little bit on there, I think you have to understand your purpose, and you have to have a passion behind it, because like Rennie said, you're going to run into obstacles. There's going to be a lot of adversity. So if you're not willing to put that extra or go that extra mile for this, then you're probably not going to be successful. So at the first sign of adversity, you're going to be willing, or there's going to be contemplations of, I want to quit, because is this really worth it? So it takes time to I think build something, and I think a lot of times we may see what someone else has built, and we think that it was overnight. So it's like, oh, Rennie did this, like I can do it as well, you know. But there's a passion. There was a lot of work that Rennie put into it, and understanding that, and you know, it's not really just because Rennie was good at it, meaning that I'll be good at it as well. Like there's a passion that Rennie started this for.
But see, you know, that's what I get asked all the time. So let's use something like speaking. They say, how do I do that in Las Vegas? I'm like, okay, so we'll start with getting paid for nothing.
Right.
And then maybe you get some expense, you know, right?
Yeah, people aren't want to do that.
And they said, well, that's a lot of work. I said, dude, you don't just show up one day and it's reps. And I said, you realize, God, man, I got a lot of work to do, right? Behind the scenes, and you get better and better. They're like, ooh, I thought you were just going to tell me like the 3 things I need to know. I'm like, yeah, do it for free.
Right.
I want to make money.
Well, and Ryan, let me interject here. That's the concept that a lot of people have, that if they get this plug-and-play system and they follow all their steps, that they're going to be successful.
Nope.
It doesn't work. That's not real. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I had 2. Just an analogy from our world or metaphor from our world. There's a certain point in the season where you have to put that work in. The training camp, this time of the year.
Y'all don't miss
training
that.
camp moments.
Yeah.
I call it the training camp moments in life where you have to put in hours and hours and hours of work. Coaches putting you through it. It's hot. It's miserable. There's no TVs. There's no cameras. Nobody's on campus. Just gunning it out. And a lot of things you do don't make any sense. Like, you're just like, man, dang, I'm going through it. You ready to fight your teammates. But it's like you have to go through that in order to prepare for your season. And depending on how you handle the training camp moments, it either sets you up for a winning season or a losing season. And I feel like as an entrepreneur or whatever you do in life, you have to go through those times that's just like hard, and it doesn't you can't see the other side.
But it's like the Rocky Balboa. You know, you see how hard can you get punched and get up? You know, keep moving forward. I mean, it's true. When you punched hard and you're going, man.
Yeah.
And then you got to say, how am I going to recoup? How am I going to get back up? And that's what I've ingrained in my kids and everybody I coach and work with, is saying life's not always easy. You know what? You have your up times, your down times, and you know, so forth. So, well, let me ask real quick. All right, we have Ronnie Brown, Auburn legend, NFL great, and I just want to put your Twitter handle out there at Ronnie23Brown, and it's also the same on Instagram at Ronnie23Brown. We also have Rennie Curran. We haven't talked to Auburn, Georgia, or anything yet, but we got a few more minutes left. And Rennie, we have at Rennie, Twitter is Rennie Curran 53, and Instagram is at Rennie Curran. So, you know, give those guys, they already got a ton of followers, but give them more.
I need more.
Because
I just got started.
No. Well, what they're putting out, I'll tell you, you want to follow them, like I said before, that's great stuff, and they talk about giving back and making a difference. So they're the real deal, and they're authentic, and they're genuine. And so
I'm just curious if there are any current projects or something that you really want the listening audience to hear today that's upcoming. I see the smiles.
This is why I have her here. And man, I forget the questions. Good questions.
No, for me, I mean, it's just grinding. You know, obviously I'm working with Wells Fargo, so you know, I've got into the business world. I'm excited about it. You know, and it's a great opportunity for me to help a lot of people, and you know, more importantly, to help people understand the things that I didn't understand, or try to prevent hurdles that I had to end up jumping over. I may have ran into a few.
Little linebacker.
You know, and just, you know, the planning of life, man. I think that's the most important thing, like we talked about earlier, is time management and, you know, having a plan. And I think when you're doing that, then you're setting yourself up to be successful in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. For me, man, I'm working on a lot. Of course, continuing to build my speaking business and the coaching and whatnot.
I think there's 2 of you. I see so many times. Do you have like a stunt double?
Yeah.
How you do it?
I'm really
use those years wisely. That's good.
Thank you. I've really been focused on leveraging my knowledge, and you know, from rebranding myself to going from an athlete to a speaker to entrepreneur, to writing my 2 books, things like that. So how do I teach others how to do that? And one of the things I'm working on is some online courses, and then I'm also working on pouring back into the next generation of athletes. So starting a nonprofit as well, Game Changers Foundation, to help starting with high school athletes, giving them just mentors, providing programming through having former athletes like Ronnie and myself to go back and speak at schools, also having a leadership conference. And then the other one I'm going to have to come back and tell you all about, because that one It's
Okay, good.
not out yet, but you guys will hear about it. And
All right, we'll have you back on the show.
yeah, you guys will.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Hey,
All
you
right,
should
look.
see the smile. It's something
Yeah.
big.
Yeah,
so
well,
I saw that.
everybody
Hey.
keep an eye
I saw
out
that
for
smile.
what
Well,
Rennie has
the
going.
Cheshire cat
I
over
just say
there.
it's a game changer.
Well,
I'm just gonna
you
tell you that.
let us know when it's ready, and we'll have you
I
back on the
will.
show.
He's the game changer, no
that's-
pun intended.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I think it's awesome. We need more of what these guys are giving back today. We need you investing in people.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, and
Thank you.
and communicating and teaching others that work ethic that seems to be so missing in so many industries today.
Definitely.
So that's awesome.
Well, it's just two solid guys, and for all my friends out there that are Auburn Tiger fans or UGA Bulldog fans, everybody gets caught up with that, and that's great. You love your team and whatever. I would say both of you, though, as we kind of come to a close, have been able to leverage.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you both do because I'll see you back in Auburn and Georgia, but that's a great place to plug in and build your business too,
Oh,
because
man.
there's all kinds of
absolutely.
relationships that keep going, right? And younger
Yeah.
people, and
how
they
it's
go,
about,
"Oh yeah,
man."
I remember you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
They probably thought I passed away by now. I'm so old, but I'm just kidding. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think we both just understand the importance of relationship,
Right.
in the world, and even beyond that, it's just like we say in our small group, circles are better than rows, and I think
Yes.
once we all have an understanding, we're sitting here, we're talking, offering different perspectives, but there's an ability or opportunity for us to pour into one another and to help encourage and uplift, each other, and I think there's an opportunity for us all to do that at some point, and we all need it at some point.
Absolutely.
And I agree, man. We were just talking about this not too long ago, but just the importance of leveraging your platform, whatever that is. For us, we wore that jersey. We're on the field playing in front of 90,000. So we had that awareness to understand that these fans weren't just fans. Like, these are CEOs, these are politicians.
yeah,
these are
yeah.
so
Absolutely.
many different types of people. And I think on a smaller scale, people have to understand that no matter what organization you're with, that you're a part of, you still have a platform. There are daily interactions that you have that you can leverage. So whether that's you're a salesperson, whether you're a waitress and you're coming in contact with people, you're building skills,
Relationships.
you also building relationships that you can leverage for another part of your life, because we're all going to transition at some point.
The thing you're saying, somebody always asks me as we're kind of coming to a close in a moment, return on investment. But I say, what's the return on the relationship?
Right.
Exactly.
Right? Because
Yeah.
to me, everything's built on trust. And some people do business with me simply because they go, we just trust you. I mean, we know whatever you're doing, we want to be a part of it. And that's the
Right.
ultimate compliment. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not a game changer. I'm waiting I'm ready for Rennie's next now. But, I'm saying I'm going with my gut. I feel, what God's put together, I think we're going down the right road. But it may not be. I can't promise. But I think it's a good thing. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we need to start coming to an end here.
Oh, do we have to?
I don't know.
We
I
gotta
think
have
we
the-
I
talk.
want to add one more thing,
Yeah,
too.
of course.
You talked about the return on relationships. I also believe in return on experience in
Yeah.
terms of transferable skills. Like, one of the reasons why I believe or part of me becoming a speaker was all the interviews that I did.
Right.
Yeah, I was
You
thinking,
know that-
you guys have been interviewed a million
Yeah.
times, haven't you?
Right. And
Because
so,
y'all knew how to use the mic. I watched it. He was like, we get it.
man,
We get it.
Yeah, but so many people don't think about just the daily grind and what skills that they're building that can transfer into other industries. So I feel like that is so important to break down as you're going through your job, or just whatever you do on a day-to-day basis. Are you keeping track of that?
That's a good question,
Yeah.
Mitch. Y'all are talking to these younger people. Are y'all coaching them a little bit and being careful what they're posting on social media, these
We
athletes?
try, man.
I know they've been
You
told
try.
over and over and over, but
Yeah.
some of them continue not to.
Oh.
Well, retweet really is endorsing something, and they're not looking a lot of times.
Right.
I'm like, take that down.
Right,
They're like,
right.
oh, I didn't.
It's not only what they're posting, but it's also what they're not posting.
Right.
For us athletes, like, if you look at the majority of guys' page, it's all pictures of them catching the ball,
Yeah.
making a tackle. Nobody knows anything about your brand outside of that jersey, and that, to me, is one of the biggest crimes. I mean, honestly, because you have that platform. You're coming out of high school with 30,000 followers, and the only thing you share with people is about football, and that's it. So when you're done, you are basically
more
starting
than
from
that.
ground zero.
Well,
So,
also, you had Trevor Lawrence's jersey the other day,
Yeah.
but that kid looks like a great young man.
Oh,
Yeah,
just-
and that's the thing. Like, in our hometown,
We go
it's small.
Clemson. For any Clemson folks, I had to switch the.
But my hometown is small.
Yeah.
On Friday nights, everyone goes, watches the game. I used to take my son back. When Trevor was there, I still go back, watch games. My family's there. But, I think at the end of the day, it's just realizing that what you put on there this is really your first interview. Like, this is
Right.
really like your resume,
Good
because
point.
Yeah.
people are
Yes.
gonna look at this in whatever it is. And I think a lot of guys kind of lose the fact that, especially in the NFL or professional sports, like, they're looking at everything. They want to know what type of person you are, because if they're
Right.
going to invest money in you,
Exactly.
then they need to know what kind of return they're getting. So that's the first resume, and you're putting it out there. So you got to be cautious,
Yeah.
you know, of what you want people
Well,
to think about
when
you.
I see that Trevor Lawrence, I don't even know him. Jake Fromm, I don't know him firsthand, but those guys
Right.
seem real.
Right.
You know, I mean, they
Yeah.
seem like what you see is what you get. Am I
I
right?
agree. No, I agree.
Right,
And,
you know?
and to that point, man, one of the things we don't realize as athletes is that people don't get to really truly know us outside of our helmet.
Right.
So our only
Right.
Yeah.
credibility comes from things like that, and then what we do on the field. And that also translates into the business world, because people, like, I still get people that come up to me to this day and they're like, thank you for what you did in the Florida
Yeah.
game. And because I just went hard, it builds a certain credibility in the business world as far as trustworthiness and work ethic and all those things that translate in terms of value. So
Which-
I always try to encourage athletes to think about those things.
Which is the beginning of your brand.
Right, that's
So
it.
before you wrap us up,
Yep.
Brian, we must hear
Yeah.
one closing statement from
totally.
these men. What is one thing that you would like the audience to just be sure and hear?
That's a tough.
Ooh, you know,
Oh, I know. It's a powerful question when they have
I think
to
we're
think
talking
about
marketing matters. I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's really understanding the brand of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding the power of, you know, the individual that you possess as an individual, and being able to exemplify or, you know, portray what it is that you want to portray, you know, and nobody understands you the way that you understand you. So you're going to have to be a little bit more expressive, to some degree, and get outside of your comfort zone. I think that's the thing.
Get
You have to
comfortable
get
being
comfortable.
uncomfortable, right?
And I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
key, you know, being willing to do things that you're not normally, you know, gonna do, you know, and to get your brand and really, really believe in it. Because in order for someone else to believe in it, you have to believe in it, and they have to see that confidence from yourself.
That's
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
stuff.
I
How
love
about
it.
you, Rennie?
Man, one thing that just came to my heart and my mind is, you know, we're talking about marketing matters, we're talking about personal branding, but in my lifetime, or in my life, I've never wanted to be, or I don't want to be, a public success and a private failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a daughter, you know, and that she's one of the ones that drives me to really just become the best version of myself, the best man. So it's not necessarily about what I put out there. It's about, you know, my relationship with her.
Y'all are both good dads.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Y'all are
Yeah,
both good dads.
just trying to be a good father, trying to be a good person in the
It's a
community.
tough job, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough job.
And
Is
that's where for me is what it's really all about. Because if you take care of those things in your house, you know, with your closest relationship with those who know you and love you the most, then everything else will take care of itself.